Welcome to Seasonal Stays and Campfire Days. I'm your host, Josh.
And I'm Jen, where we talk about seasonal camping and RV gear.
Jen,
Yes.
guess what time it is?
What time is it?
Favorite time of year?
It's not Halloween yet.
Well, no, not yet. We're a couple weeks out for Halloween, but guess what else happens
What
around
is
this
that?
time?
What?
It starts getting colder,
I don't like it.
especially up by where we're at, up northern Illinois, southern Wisconsin.
Yeah.
You know what we have to do when we're not using the camper, right?
Yes.
And that's winterizing.
It's that time of year.
Yes, it is. I know that next weekend, after we're done up there, we're going to have to winterize the water lines on it because it's supposed to drop below freezing.
Yeah.
So,
It is right after this weekend, isn't it?
yes, it is. Yep. And then it's going to continue to drop lower and lower, which is your favorite time of year. My favorite time of year, at least.
Definitely is not. Well, you're like a polar bear, so like even when it's 15 degrees, you'll still go out in your t-shirt.
So in our camper, we were up in northern Wisconsin, and we experienced negative 15, negative 16 degrees for how many days were we out there? 4 days, 4 days.
It was 3 nights. Yeah, it was 3 nights, I believe. But the worst part about that was, remember, it was 55 degrees the night before. Very nice weather. Then there was a huge downpour. And then all of a sudden the next morning at 8 a.m. woke up to 2 feet of freaking snow.
Oh yeah, that
was insane.
Yeah, I had to go on top of the roof and
Literally
go
all
and
this
shovel all the
happened.
snow off.
And that wasn't last year. That was the year prior.
Yeah,
Where they seen the worst snow they actually ever saw. We happened to decide to camp on the land there. And it was huge blizzard. And like I said, the weather was that much within 9 hours.
Yeah, it got really cold. I mean,
huge
50
temperature
degrees,
swing.
and then middle of the night it was at least negative 15.
And a blizzard happened. We woke up to snow that was right above my knees.
Yeah,
it was insane.
At least we knew how to basically insulate the camper for the most part, and we knew how to deal with it. So, but we're on a totally different topic now.
Mm-hmm.
Besides, I mean, I guess at some point we might be able to talk about using or insulating a camper for cold weather like what we did. But today we're going to go ahead and talk about winterization, specifically what we bring out of our camper and bring home, and how we winterize the water system, which is the biggest component of winterization of any camper, Class A, Class C, towables, fifth wheels, anything.
Yes, it's absolutely necessary. It has to happen.
It has to, otherwise then you'll have a blowout with the toilet like how I did a couple years ago in the bus. I think it was in the bus. I think it was in that fifth wheel. And I didn't turn
then that was like years and years ago.
Yeah, and I didn't turn the water off either on that one, and it went and flooded out the RV. It was like an ice skating rink.
What blew out exactly then? What was that?
It was the flush valve that froze over and blew out.
Oh. Speaking of the inside, we should talk about what we take home or out of our camper to prevent pests while it's sitting in storage. A lot of first things I have is that you don't want to leave any liquids behind, or food or snacks, or any paper products or garbage behind at all whatsoever. You don't want to give them a reason. You don't want to give mice or bugs or any rodents or any pests in general to get into your campers. You want to get rid of all those things. And I say paper products especially too. Like I'm talking paper towels and
paper plates,
toilet paper. Paper plates. They would love to shred that up and just make a little home with that.
Yeah, all that little bedding and everything, and then you'll find it all over the camper
Yeah.
You know.
And yeah, they just like to shred stuff. So.
But the liquid thing that you were talking about, that's mostly just because last year even I think we left like a bottle of something.
So when I say liquids, I mean like all liquids, even cleaner. I had a bottle of, I don't remember exactly which cleaner it was.
It was some sort of spray cleaner or something.
It going through those temperature swings. I left it under, our kitchen sink cabinet, and it just like kind of exploded at some point all down the side of the bottle, and even the spray nozzle was destroyed and everything from it too. So yeah, when I say liquids, I also mean cleaning products or anything, when it comes to water, obviously soda, any alcohol. You don't want to leave that behind. You want to get it out for the winter seasons.
Contrary to popular belief, alcohol does freeze if it gets cold enough.
Yeah. We've experienced that quite a few times.
We've experienced that a couple times.
There's been those few things we don't like too much that sit for too long, and, well, then we get a surprise later.
Yeah.
So there's that. So, yeah, again, those are all things you don't want to leave behind. Take it home with you. Throw stuff away. Whichever it is. If it's garbage or things that could come home with you and go back the next season, please do take care of that. Absolutely clean everything, too. Your microwave, your stove, the oven, the sink, too, toilet.
This all comes back to you don't want to leave anything behind that would entice any rodent from coming in.
Yeah, you don't want to give them a reason to. And that's the thing. Like, I've heard of people, they have a mice problem, but yet they give them so many reasons to come in the first place. So again, make sure everything is really clean. I mean, this is something you want to do as you're even staying in the camper during the season, but even off season, make sure there's not a crumb of anything left behind.
Well, especially off season, because you're not there to check on it all the time.
Right. Yeah, you want to make sure there's absolutely no trace of any food or debris like that left behind.
So that's one thing that I was just thinking of while you were saying that. You don't want to leave any, like, traps anywhere. Unless you can get to, like, where we're at on a seasonal site, we're not going back up for another 6 months.
Right.
So we're not going to be setting any traps, because what happens is the animal decomposes. Now you got the smell, you got all the liquids that come from it, the stains and everything, and that's just it attracts more.
And this all goes back to don't give them a reason to want to stay.
Exactly.
So there's that, and also there's a lot of people that like to take, when it comes to your beds in the camper, have actually put them in mattress bags, which are a good option too. It keeps keeping off urine or mice urine or feces off of your bedsheet, off of your mattress as well.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I know there's more than a few people that do that over at the campground that we're at.
Yeah. No, there really is. There's a lot of people that do that. They put their mattresses in the bags. And again, that's great. Keeps your mattress clean and no pest urine, feces, or any other residue that they're going to leave behind. And you want to make sure all your clean dishes, glasses, and silverware, you could leave those behind.
As long as they're clean.
As long as they're clean. That's fine. Those you will have no problem with leaving behind. Just make sure there's no crumbs or food particles left behind, especially in your cabinets or your drawers. I know, the silverware drawer is a notorious place where, you could get a lot of crumbs and food particles into. So make sure you're cleaning out your drawers or cabinets wherever food particles or crumbs may be at.
Yeah, this is the time to deep clean every nook and cranny of the RV that you can get to.
Yeah. No, that is absolutely true. And also, again, when it comes to the garbage, don't leave any outside at your site either. I know, as you're leaving for the season, but don't leave garbage or anything outside. Even if it's outside of your camper, that's enough for them to want to come in as well. Again, this is all things to keep them out. You don't want to give them a reason to come in.
What about linens? We take our linens with us, right?
Yes, we take our blankets, our sheets, our pillowcases, and our pillows will come with us too.
Now, what we usually don't do is what we probably should do at some point is probably take the cushions. like from our couch and the dinette and all that, but
right.
We don't really have too much space for all that, and we also we're covered from insurance and through Keystone,
right,
with it. So if there was any problems,
I mean, there is people that definitely will take their cushions off if you have the dinette or your sofa or whatever, they will take the cushions with them as well. We have never done it. Ours is more like a leather. It's
like like a cheaper leather type material. It's like almost like pleather.
Yeah, we've never done that though.
No, we've been.
It's just something that I would like to bring up because there is people out there that do like to do that just to be on the safe side.
Well, we kind of go a little bit more with our winterization than what most people will do, just because we're in a situation where we're not going to see that camper for 6 months.
Right.
So
yes,
we
absolutely.
take every precaution that we can to minimize anything.
Yep. So that's it as far as, just keeping everything clean. So make sure it's totally clean, deep cleaned, even cabinets and drawers. And then after that, you move on to the big important things too of winterizing the camper.
Water.
The water lines.
The water lines, those are the biggest things. Because really, you don't really have to do that much with like air conditioners and everything. Although I did just get the RV or the air conditioner covers.
Yes.
I'm going to try that out this year because I think that's important. We've never done that since we've owned the camper. But I would like to at least put that on the air conditioners. I'm not a big fan of the whole camper being covered because I'm afraid that mold is going to start growing in there because there's not airflow. Because every camper is going to have a little bit of airflow in it, but I think that those covers are just going to stop it from happening.
So does that mean you're covering the fan too?
Which fan?
The one up front in the bunkhouse.
No. I'm going to just. Usually, what I do is I don't have any power running through it because we take the battery out.
Yeah.
For it. And that's one of the things with the winterization too is take your batteries out if you're not going to use it for a while.
Yeah.
Throw it on a battery tender. I have a battery tender that I use for our motorcycles.
Yeah.
So I just hook that up to there and it just keeps it charged throughout the winter. That way then, come next year we're not in for another battery. But we're not going to have any power up there. And even though that we have solar, and we have a small amount of solar that would be able to run that fan that I added in, once snow gets on that panel, that's it. You're cut off anyways.
Right.
So we don't keep the fan on, but I'll keep the vents open. And we'll put that damp rid. The tubs of damp rid.
Yeah, no, those things were great. Damp rid is something you should absolutely have.
Yeah, it helps keep the moisture level down, the humidity level inside the camper, and it also helps keep it smelling nice. That was one thing that I noticed, was that our camper actually smelled pretty, almost like it was brand new.
Yes, it did. It still, it didn't smell like it was sitting. And again, that stuff is called damp rid. For those of you that don't know, that's DAMPRID. And it's big. It's a big bucket. They have them in different sizes.
And we're not sponsored, by the way.
Yeah. No, we're not.
Sponsored by this. This is just stuff that we use.
Spelling it out so they could understand exactly what we were saying.
No, I know. I'm just saying though, we're not sponsored in any way, or we're not. Yeah. There's a whole bunch of people that are on YouTube and everything that they are sponsored, or they might be sponsored by them, but they.
No, we found out about this. Well, he's already known about this forever, but other people at the campground, when we first got there, they were very much like, have damp rid, put that in your camper, have it in there all the time, especially when it's sitting over the winter season.
Yeah, and I was already I was planning on doing that anyway. So and we did it, and that was the first time that Jenna ever experienced it, and yeah, it was great. I would recommend that to anybody.
Yes, absolutely.
that gets us to the big topic of actual, what they would call winterization of the camper. So, from what I've been researching and from what I've done before, there are two main winterization types for the water lines, right? So, we have the compressed air. So you hook up an air compressor to your water lines, and then you put antifreeze into your P-traps to make sure the P-traps don't freeze. So that's the option that we use because we don't know exactly how cold it will get, and we've gotten some pretty frigid temperatures before. Even though antifreeze is really good, some of the extreme ones only go down to negative 50 degrees, which, I mean, that's really cold, but most of them are like negative 20. Well, we've gotten down to negative 15, and we stayed in the camper at that point. So I'm more comfortable with the air compressor method. So that's what I'm going to go and talk about first, is what I do, and then we'll go ahead and I'll talk about the antifreeze method. So I'll just say the steps, I guess, for what you do with it. So the first one, so this is the air compressor method and the antifreeze method. So that's a combined thing. So the first thing that I always do when I start it is I turn off all the water. That's your water pump and that's your city water connection, depending on which one that you have set. Usually when we're up there, I have the freshwater tank filled with water just in case if we lose power, because that has happened.
Yes, many times.
And so, or if we're taking a shower, our water pressure's a little bit lower, so I'll turn the water pump on, boost the pressure up. So what I do is I make sure I turn off all the water. That's both city water connection and your water pump. And after I do that, I go outside and I open up my low point drains. And I just let those, both the cold water and the hot water, just let it all go down. Then, after I open those up and they start draining, I go back inside the camper. Now, our water heater is sitting underneath our kitchen sink.
Yes, that it is.
So I tear into the cabinet underneath the kitchen sink, and I locate my bypass valves for the water heater. So I set those to the winterizing mode, or the bypass.
Does it actually say winterizing mode on there?
So some do.
Oh, interesting.
So the people that are next to us, they have this system, and I can't remember exactly what it's called. I meant to go and look it up, what it was called. But there's like 5 valves. It's mostly for anybody that has a wet bay, like fifth wheels, right? Mostly. They'll actually have a winterizing mode where you turn a bunch of valves, and then that's your winterizing mode.
Okay.
Ours, we just bypass the water heater. There's usually 2 valves. It just bypasses it completely. So you do that, then you're going outside the water into the water heater to that access. Now you want to make sure that the water heater has been turned off and the water inside is not hot. Otherwise, then this next step will burn you, because what you're doing is you're going to be pulling the anode, the sacrificial anode from the water heater. You got to pull that out. That way then it will drain the whole thing. And there's a pressure relief valve too. You open that too, because otherwise then there's a vacuum and water won't come out, and it'll glug. Instead, just open the pressure relief valve and it all comes out right away, real quick. So you do that.
Okay.
So the next step that I do at that point, it's just kind of a waiting game. So I go back to the other side of the camper where our low point drains are, and I'm waiting for that to stop flowing water.
Yes.
So there's nothing coming out of those drains anymore. And I close them. I close those drains back up. Now it's easy for us because I ended up putting on a valve. I put valves on them so I can open them and close them real easy without using wrenches or anything. So it's real nice. So at that point, what I'm going to do is, after I've closed off the low point, I'm going to set up my air compressor, turn it on. I'm going to put on an air dryer, and then I'm going to put a hose on, because you need to make sure that you don't want to be blowing moisture in.
Right.
To the lines, you want to have nice dry air because you're trying to get all that moisture out.
Yes.
And I'm going to set that to a maximum of 60 psi. The closer that you can get to 60 psi, the better that you'll be able to blow everything out. So, at this point, we're going to make sure, while the air compressor is filling up with air, we're going to go and make sure that the freshwater tank doesn't have any water in it. So you remember at the very beginning, I'm like, open your tanks, or open your freshwater tank, or did I say that? I don't know if I did or not, but you're supposed to open up your freshwater tank at that point.
I don't know, you didn't. You were kind of just went into the water heater, I believe.
Well, we're going to make sure that there's no water in the freshwater tank at all. So you open it up. If it's at that point, just open it up. It's fine. Just let it drain out. Because what we're going to do is we're going to clear out the water pump at that point by just turning it on for about 5 to 10 seconds and just let it run dry. They can handle a little bit of running dry.
Right.
Now, you don't want to let it run for, 5-10 minutes. Just 5-10 seconds, you'll hear it. Like ours is a variable speed, so you'll hear it ramp up once it pushes all that water through, and then you shut it off and it's done. Now you've taken a majority of the water out. Pretty much at that point, it's not going to do anything. Some people, they'll put antifreeze and run it through, but we can cover that when we go and talk about the other method.
Yes.
Because that's a main point, a pretty big, point on what you have to do in order to winterize with it. Okay. So we cleared that out, turn the water pump off. Now we're going to hook up the air line from the air compressor to the city water connection. So the city water connection, they make this thing that plugs into that line, and it just screws in just like a hose, regular hose. So you plug that in, and you want to make sure that all your faucets are closed. Otherwise, then you're just sending air through. So make sure all the faucets are closed. But when you're actually winterizing, you go from the city water connection at that point, and you work your way towards the low point drain. So in ours, it goes from the kitchen sink. You open up the cold water, you let that go, and you let it go until there's nothing coming out, just air. Shut it off.
Yeah.
You open up the hot side, and same thing. So we do our kitchen faucet, and then we'll go into the bathroom. And we'll do the same process for that faucet that's in the bathroom sink. Cold, turn off, hot, turn off, and then we'll do the shower. Cold, turn off, hot, turn off. And the fun one is the toilet, because that always sprays me.
Oh my god.
Because that thing, the valve on that thing just lets a little bit extra pressure through.
Yes.
So it likes to spray me, so I always put the lid down.
Right.
And it still somehow sprays my legs.
Really?
It just comes out.
So it's getting through the seal?
There's no seal. No, it's the toilet seat at the very top.
The toilet seat itself.
Yeah, there's a little gap.
Okay. Right. Okay. Makes
so
sense.
When you push it down, it just comes through the gap.
Okay. I see what you're saying.
So at that point, once I know that there's no more water coming out of any of the faucets from inside, I'll go outside. Now we got the outdoor shower. that would be our next thing. So the outdoor shower, we do the same thing. Cold on, turn off. Hot on, turn off until there's nothing coming through. Then we go to the low point drains and do the same thing there. And then at that point, when there's nothing running out of those, you know you're done.
Right.
With the air compressor. Mm-hmm. So you shut everything off. You go and you turn your air compressor off. You unhook it. And then you want to depressurize the system. So it doesn't matter which one it is. I'll do the low point drains because I'm already outside. Just open those up and it just lets the pressure out.
Yeah.
So that way it's not leaking out somewhere or whatever. So do that. Then the only other thing really is you just have to take a little bit of antifreeze, pour it down the P-trap. So any of the sinks and the shower.
Yes.
Anything that's going to have a P-trap, because you want to replace all that water that's inside the P-trap with antifreeze. And that's pretty much it.
Okay.
You want to make sure that, your black tank and the gray tanks are dumped just like normal. If you want to, you can put a little bit of antifreeze in there, but it's not necessary.
Yeah.
At that point, there's enough space in there that water expands.
Yeah, that is true.
And if you do it correctly, if you dump it correctly, there shouldn't be any water in there to begin with.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's the air compressor method. The other method is the antifreeze method, and we're putting antifreeze in throughout the entire system.
Yeah.
So what we do is, just now we're on the antifreeze method. So we're done with we're winterized with the compressor.
Right.
So now we've moved on to another trailer.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're using antifreeze because they want to use antifreeze. So first thing I do, which is a step for both, essentially, dump all your tanks. All of them. Black tanks, gray tanks. Dump your freshwater tank. That way then you're nice and clear. You don't need water anymore. That's it, So then again, we're going to turn off all the water. That's water pump and city water connections. Okay. Then we're going to go to the water heater and set that to bypass or winterize. See, look, it's kind of the same.
It is. It's very similar.
It's very similar to it.
I mean, there's different methods, but at the end, I mean, it's all in what you prefer.
Yeah, so literally the next thing is make sure the water heater's not hot. It takes a while for it to cool down and pull the anode out. That's the next step. Pull the anode out. Let that go. You don't want to put antifreeze in the water heater at all. It's not good for it.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, I don't know what the science is behind it, but we don't do that.
Right.
So no antifreeze in there. Then this is where it differs a little bit.
Okay.
So at this point, what you're going to do is some campers have a winterization pickup connection. So you can actually put a tube on it and stick the tube in some of the antifreeze jugs, or you can fill up a 5-gallon bucket with antifreeze. You just put that in. Real simple. Then you just turn the water pump on, and the water pump will suck it out of the 5-gallon bucket or the jugs and send it throughout the camper. But if you don't have that luxury like what we do, we don't have that luxury.
Yeah.
What you do is you have to locate your water pump, and you have to bypass the freshwater tank. So in our situation, ours is real simple. We just go and disconnect the water tank, the freshwater tank, from the water pump.
Right.
And we'll put a pickup tube, screw it onto the water pump, and just run it to the outside of the camper.
Yeah.
And into a 5-gallon bucket full of antifreeze, or into the jugs. So we're essentially using the water pump to pump the antifreeze throughout the system.
Yes.
So at that point, then, it's the same steps. It's just now you're using the water pump and antifreeze. Mm-hmm. So what you do, turn the water pump on, and then you turn the faucets on one by one on cold, and then when pink starts running through, or whatever color the antifreeze is,
yes,
most of the time, like 99% of the time, it's pink.
Mm-hmm.
So once you start seeing pink running through, turn it off, then go to the other side. So once the cold starts running pink, turn that off, turn the hot on. Once it starts running pink, turn that off, move on to the next faucet. And always work from the source, so the water pump, to your low point drains. Always.
Okay.
So it's real simple. It's basically the same steps. It's just now we're running antifreeze through, not compressed air. Right? So
there's something I wanted to add. You were talking about not running it through the water heater.
Yeah.
Weren't sure the science behind that. It's because certain RV antifreeze, it depends on what the components are of the antifreeze itself. But most of it's typically made from propylene glycol or ethylene glycol, which is harmful to the components of a hot water heater.
Oh, okay.
So that's why it is not recommended to run that through the hot water heater itself.
Okay. Hey, I'm pretty sure that'd be pretty expensive too to buy all that antifreeze.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So there you go. That's why we don't run antifreeze through the water heater.
Yes.
But so we're back onto we're running everything through each faucet like how we did with the air compressor, but now we're doing it with antifreeze. Now we don't want to get air in it, so you need to be watching that 5-gallon bucket or your jugs. So you don't want to run any air through it. So you replace it as you need to and whatever. So once you've gone through everything inside the camper, once you went to your shower outside the camper, if you have a shower on the outside of the camper, you go to the low point drains, do the same thing. Just make sure that there's some antifreeze that's coming out of it. The difference is that you, when you're done, you close off those drains and just leave them sit with the antifreeze inside. So, like with the compressed air, I like to leave it open. That way then if there is anything that's dripping, it's just going to go right out. It's not going to pool at the very bottom. But with the antifreeze, you replace all that water. So it's totally fine to just close everything up and just leave it.
Yeah.
So, and then the last thing is you just take a little bit of antifreeze, a little bit of the extra stuff, pour it down the drains, down the P-traps. Just like with the air compressor.
Yes.
And that's it.
Okay.
That's pretty much it. All you're doing is you're just trying to get all the water out of the lines.
Right.
The best that you can to make sure that they don't freeze.
Yes.
So, that's the way that I winterize a camper. That's the way that you help me winterize the camper. That's the way that you winterize the camper on the inside. So, I think we've covered pretty much everything.
Yeah. No, that we did.
So at this point, I mean, we're going to be posting this up on YouTube. So if anybody has any comments or anything, or if they have a suggestion on what they do, or if they want to share what they do, they can always comment down. We'll read them, and you know.
And I know there's people that are very they're very adamant that, oh no, it's antifreeze, or there's others like you like to do the blowout method and everything. What are your reasons for that too? I want to hear that, because I've only heard that there's people who are like, no, it's just antifreeze, or no, it has to be the blowout method. Why the preference on either or?
Yeah.
You know?
That'd be kind of interesting to hear people's thoughts of those. I know mine is that the reason why I do the air compressor method is because of how cold it can get out here, and I don't want to risk antifreeze freezing on me.
No, we definitely do get surprises. I mean, look where we live there's always at one point, even though our winters have been mild the last few years, we always have that 1 week where we go into -30 to -40.
We can.
Temperatures, and that's where we live. Where our campers at, that's even further up north, and they kind of get a little bit more into the negative.
Yeah. So yes. And they get into the negatives longer.
Yeah.
At that point. So it's more of a deep freeze.
True.
But that's why I like using the air compressor, because then I don't have to worry about any freeze or anything like that. So that's my personal preference on it. But if you're more south, you don't have... Some people, they don't have a Winterize. If they're way down south, there's no point in doing that.
Yeah. I mean, they drop to what? They might drop to 39, 40 degrees at night.
Right.
You know, they're still not freezing.
So either way, we're interested to hear with comments.
Oh, yes,
and everything.
Absolutely.
What people do. If we didn't cover something, tell us in the comments, you know, what you would do or what you would do differently or whatever it is. But other than that, we can't thank you enough for listening and hope to see you guys.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
Yeah, hopefully that we'll go ahead and see you on the next podcast.